In a land ruled by power and mystery, a princess lies dying, and a single hunter must face the evil forest to save her. Can Kofi conquer the darkness and restore hope to the kingdom? Find out in The King's Daughter and the Contest of Hunters. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.
Once upon a time in the peaceful and beautiful village of Ntozu, there lived a king whose name struck awe in the hearts of friend and foe alike. King Echaka, the Lion of the East, ruled his people with wisdom and justice. His voice was thunder, his gaze was fire. His hands, though strong, were often gentle when raised to bless his people. For many seasons under his rule, the kingdom knew peace. Traders thronged their markets, farmers tilled the soil with joy, and children sang praises of their land at dusk. But for all his wealth, power, and wisdom, King Echaka had only one child that the gods had granted him, a daughter named Princess Amara. She was more than a princess. She was the heartbeat of Ntozu. Her beauty was spoken of in whispers, for it was said the sun paused to kiss her skin when she walked the palace gardens, and the moon bent low to brighten her face when she sat by her window chamber at night. Her kindness was even greater than her beauty. She visited the poor, carried gifts to widows, and played with the children of commoners. Even the elderly ones called her the precious child. The people loved her dearly, and King Echaka guided her like the most precious jewel in his kingdom. She was not just a daughter to him. She was the symbol of his lineage, the light of his reign, the laughter in his old age. But one season, a darkness fell upon Ntozu. Princess Amara fell ill. At first, it was thought to be the fever that sometimes came when the harmattan wind blew too long. But the fever did not pass. Day by day, her body weakened, her laughter dimmed, her strength waned. She who once danced with the maidens in the courtyard now lay motionless on silken mats, her face pale as ivory. The king summoned the best healers in the land. They came with bags of roots and sacred chants. They burned incense, rubbed oils, and brewed potions. Some prayed, some sacrificed animals, but none could cure the strange sickness. The sickness grew worse. The princess began to cough up blood. Her skin grew cold even under the hottest sun. Her eyes, once bright as stars, now carried shadows. The kingdom trembled in fear. Mothers wailed in secret. Maidens mourned, and strong men whispered, "If the princess dies, Ntozu's light will be quenched." Finally, King Echaka called for Kuzu, the diviner, an ancient seer who dwelt in the mountains where the clouds kissed the trees. Kuzu came, old and bent, with cowries tied into his beard and color-stained lips that murmured to unseen spirits. He cast his cowries, drew lines in the dust, and stared into the flame of the palace fire. Then Kuzu cleared his voice and said with firmness, "The sickness of the princess is no ordinary sickness. It is not fever, not poison, not witchcraft. It is a shadowing curse that can only be broken by a herb, a rare herb known as the golden herb of life. This herb grows only in the deepest part of the evil forest of Nde. Unless the herb is brought forth, the princess will surely die." A heavy silence fell over the palace. Everyone knew of the forest of Nde. It was a known common wilderness. It was a place where the sun fought to enter but failed. Trees there twisted like serpents. Shadows danced without bodies. Spirits of the restless dead roamed its paths, and beasts with eyes like fire guided its heart. For generations, men who entered never returned. But the king's love for his daughter was fierce. He rose from his throne, voice like thunder. He said, "Hear me, people of Ntozu. My daughter, the jewel of this kingdom, lies at death's door. Whoever among you is brave enough to enter the evil forest bring back the herb and save her life shall not only marry her, but will also inherit half of my kingdom. Such a man shall sit beside me as son, and one day rule as king. The word spread throughout the land like wildfire. Men whispered with trembling lips. Some were tempted by the promise of wealth and power, others shaken by the thought of facing the forest. But among the people, 4 hunters stepped forward. They were the pride of Ntozu. Their names were Oba, Kene, Meka, and the youngest but most skilled, Kofi. Kofi was known throughout the land. His bow never missed its target. His spear never failed him, and his courage outshone even men older than him. He was loved by the people, feared by the beast, and respected by fellow hunters. But because of this, jealousy burned in the hearts of his 3 fellow companions. For though they were his friends, they knew that if Kofi entered the evil forest with them, he would surely be the one to succeed. And if he succeeded, he would marry the princess, gain half of the kingdom, and leave them forgotten. So they plotted against him. On the day of departure, the king himself blessed the hunters. The palace drummers beat their talking drums, women prayed, and children sang. The hunters were dressed in charms and leather, their bodies smeared with chalk for protection. Each had weapons blessed by Ntozu the diviner. As they left the gates, people wept and prayed, for none knew if they would ever return. The hunters journeyed together at first, their laughter loud, their steps steady, but inside the hearts of Oba, Kene, and Mecca, envy whispered like snakes. On the second night, they whispered among themselves while Kofi slept. If we allow Kofi to go with us, we are finished, Kene muttered. True, Oba agreed. He will surely find the herb. The king will give him the princess and the kingdom, while we are left with nothing. Mecca spat into the fire. Then we must remove him. Tomorrow we shall lead him to the pit of thorns. And so it was agreed. The next day they led Kofi through a false path, pretending it was a shortcut. They came upon a pit wide and deep, covered with weak branches and leaves. Kofi, Oba called, pointing ahead, "Go and fetch the god of water so we can fill our stomachs." Kofi stepped forward, trusting his friends, but the ground gave way beneath him, and with a cry, he fell into the pit. Sharp thorns torn his skin, and he lay bleeding at the bottom. The 3 hunters looked down at him. Kofi, Mecca sneered, "Forgive us, but we cannot allow you to take what we desire. May your bones rest here." And with a cruel laughter they left him, disappearing into the forest of shadows. The sun passed overhead, hours dragged like years. Kofi tried to climb, but the thorns tore deeper. His strength waned, his throat burned with thirst. Alone in the silence, betrayed by those he called brothers, he whispered a prayer. "O gods of my fathers, if my destiny is not yet finished, please give me strength to rise again." Nights fell, strange cries echoed from the forest, owls that spoke like men. In the pit, Kofi shivered, but his spirit did not break. He gathered his strength, pressed his bleeding hands against the jagged walls, and climbed, inch by inch, turn by turn, until at last, under the pale moonlight, he pulled himself free. His body was torn, his blood stained the ground, but his eyes blazed with determination. "I will not die here," he swore. "If the gods live, I shall find the herb, save the princess, and prove myself." And with unshaken resolve, he staggered deeper into the forest. Forest of evil was no ordinary wilderness. By day it breathed with a heavy silence, as if the trees themselves watched intruders with suspicion. By night it awakened. Shadows moved without owners, fires flickered in the mist, and the cries of unseen beasts sent shivers down the bravest spines. Kofi, wounded from thorns and weary from betrayal, walked with determination. His friend had left him for dead, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. Each step was painful, yet each step was also a vow. "I will not fail, not for my king, not for the princess, and not for myself." Days passed, hunger gnawed at him. Taste dried his lips, but his will carried him. Then on the 4th day, he stumbled upon a small hut deep within the forest. A hut no one in Ntozu had ever spoken of. Outside the hut sat an old woman. Her frame was thin as dry sticks. her hair white like ash, her clothes ragged. She was sitting on bare ground, her leg twisted with injury. Her eyes, however, were sharp, glowing faintly as though holding secrets too deep for mortals. She looked up as Kofi approached. "Son," she said, her voice brittle with age, "many men have passed me these last days. 3 hunters, tall, proud, and strong. They saw me wounded but gave me no help. They hurried past, their eyes filled with greed, their hearts empty of kindness. And now you come. Tell me, will you also pass me by?" Kofi paused. He could almost hear the voices of his betrayers echoing in the trees, but his heart softened at the sight of her. He bent low and said, "Mother, how could I pass you by when you suffer? Come, lean on me, I will carry you." He lifted her gently, though his own body ached, and carried her into the hut. Inside, he treated her wound with little herbs he had. He cleaned the cut, bound her leg with strips from his own garments, and gave her the last of his water. The old woman watched him with eyes that gleamed strangely, as though she saw more than just his actions. That night, rain poured heavily. The old woman lit a small fire, and Kofi sat behind her. Weary yet alert, she turned to him and asked, "Son, why do you wander the evil forest? This is no place for men." Kofi spoke with honesty. "I seek the herb called the golden herb of life, to heal the princess Amara. My companions betrayed me, but I will not turn back. Even if I perish, I must try." The old woman studied him for a very long moment. Then she smiled. A slow, knowing smile. "You have shown kindness to me. You have spoken truth where others would boast. And you seek not for riches or power, but for honor. For that, I shall give you a gift." She reached into the shadows of her hut and pulled forth a drum, small, carved of dark wood, with string that shimmered like moonlight. Its surface seemed alive, pulsing softly, as if it had a heartbeat within. "This," she whispered, "is the talking drum of Obianuju. Few know of it, few as they have touched it. When you beat it with truth in your heart, it shall speak. It shall guide your step, reveal secrets and show you the path that is hidden. But beware, if you strike it with greed or falsehood, it will betray you, and the forest shall consume you." Kofi bowed low, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Mother, I asked for nothing, yet you give me more than I deserve. May the gods bless you." The old woman's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "Go, son, the forest awaits you. The herb you seek is not where others think it lies. Remember, strike the drum when all seem lost, and listen well." At dawn, Kofi set forth again, the drum tied carefully across his back. The forest grew thicker as he pressed on. Vines hung like serpents, roots twisted like claws, strange voices whispered in the wind, calling his name, trying to turn him astray. By the third day, his strength began to falter. His food was gone, his lid cracked with thirst, and the path ahead seemed endless. At last he fell to his knees before a giant tree. "Spirit of my fathers," he gasped, "if this is where I die, let it be known that I tried." But then he remembered the drum. With a trembling hands, he struck it once with all his strength. Boom, boom, boom. The sound was not just a sound. It was a voice deep and resonant, speaking in a tongue older than men. "Kofi, son of Ntozu, your path lies not ahead, but beneath. The herb grows where water meets fire, guided by the serpent of the cave." Kofi rose, strength flooding back into his body. He followed the drum's guidance, pushing through the forest path until at last he found a cavern. From within came the hiss of a serpent, the glow of firelight and the sound of water dripping. Inside the cavern, coiled upon a rock, lay a serpent, larger than any he had ever seen. Its scales shimmered like a mountain bronze. Its eyes burned like ambers, and beside it, growing from a crack in the stone where fire meets a stream, bloomed the golden herb. Glowing faintly with golden light, Kofi's heart thundered. To take the herb meant facing death, yet he stepped forward, bow arrow in hand, steady as the hunter he was. The serpent hissed, uncoiling with a sound like thunder, its long jaws wide, fangs glistening. Kofi dodged, striking with his arrow. The cavern shook with their battle, man against beast, courage against terror. At last, with a final thrust, Kofi drove his arrow through the serpent's neck. It writhed, hissed, and fell silent. The cavern trembled, but the herb glowed brighter. Kofi plucked it gently, wrapping it in clothes, and whispered, "Princess Amara, your life is saved." When Kofi returned to Ntozu, the town was already celebrating. His 3 former companions had come back days earlier, carrying herbs they claimed to be the golden herb of life. The people sang, the king wept with joy, and preparation for the princess' healing began. But when Ntozu the diviner tasted the herbs they brought, his face darkened. "These are false," he cried. "Mere leaves with no power. Who dares mock the gods?" The people gasped, the hunters trembled, their lies exposed. Just then the palace gates opened, and Kofi entered, weak, wounded but alive. In his hands he carried the true herbs. The crowd erupted, women wept. Ntozu the diviner tasted Kofi's herb and confirmed in excitement, "This is the golden herb of life." The king himself descended from the throne, eyes filled with tears as he embraced Kofi. "Brave one," he said, voice breaking. "You've done what no man has done. You have saved my daughter's life, and with her the heart of the kingdom is yours." The herbs was prepared and given to the princess. Within hours her color returned, her breath grew steady, and by the next sunrise she rose from her bed, radiant as ever. The people rejoiced, singing her name and Kofi's name. As for the three hunters, the king decreed that their betrayals be punished. But Kofi, noble even in victory, spoke, "Great king, let their punishment be the shame of their own hearts. I have no wish for their deaths. Let them live, that they may learn." The king nodded, honoring Kofi's mercy. Days later, before the gathered people, King Ichaka declared, "Kofi, son of Ntozu, slayer of the serpent, finder of the sacred herb, savior of my daughter, take the hand of the princess Amara. From this day you are not just a hunter but a prince. Half of my kingdom shall be yours, and when my time passes you shall rule as king." The drums thundered, horns blared, and the people danced. Princess Amara stood beside Kofi, her smile brighter than the sun. But only Kofi knew deep in his heart that without the kindness shown to the mysterious widow, without the gift of the talking drum, none of this would have been possible. And as the kingdom feasted, far away in the forest, the old woman sat before her hut, smiling, for she was no ordinary widow, but a guardian spirit of the land, watching over those who are pure in hearts.